myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Monday night and it's ladies' night, and great to have, as always, Sav, Kendall, Samantha on the show. And it's a special welcome to Alicia, who is joining us tonight as Katie's having a couple of weeks off to do other things. So welcome to you, Alicia.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, good to have you on. And as always, we talk all things Newcastle United. We're going to talk a little bit more, though, about what we were talking about with the lads on the Worldwide Show yesterday, which is the guys who were at Newcastle who were out of contract and really just wanting the girls' opinion as to whether they want the players to stay or to go. Big shout out to newworkwear.com, specialists in the supply and branding of clothing for the workplace, who sponsor our show this month for the StreamYard application. And also a big shout out to John and the lads at qtechshop.co.uk, who were the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and also other things. And they've also knocked up, as we are still obviously in lockdown in the northeast and around the UK, they've knocked up some face masks, which they are selling. So $9.99 for your face mask at newcastlelegends.com. And they finally got round to doing some calendars for the food bank. So there we go. NUFC Matters calendars, proceeds to the food bank. They are $9.99 as well, available from newcastlelegends.com tonight. So they're up on the website now. As always, whenever we plan a show, and we don't do a great deal of planning, has to be said, there's always a new story comes out. But this one has actually worked in our favour, because as we're going to talk about players who are out of contracts, Almiron's agent has come out on social media especially and said that Almiron wants to leave the club in the summer, according to Michael Hurst here. I want him to stay. He works hard for the team. What is your opinion on this? And that is, he's one of the few people in the chat who've already come out with this. So let's start on Almiron. It is an interesting topic of conversation. For me, what I read into it, Alicia, was more, more his agent rather than Almiron trying to stir the pot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so much him, and I think he's trying to go along with the fact of people not being happy with the way Steve Bruce plays. Because if you look at the quote, he specifically mentions the possession that Newcastle have and the lack of it, and that he's not happy with that. And that's one of the reasons he wants to go to a team that has more possession. So I do feel like it is coming more from him. You look at Miggy when he's playing, he looks dead happy. He's always got a smile on his face. And I just don't understand why all of a sudden he would want to get gone from the club.
Yeah, good point. Tom Dixon says Almiron under Steve Bruce, total games played 51 games behind the strike. His actual position is 14. You can see why he wants to leave Newcastle. Northeast Pro says Bruce needs to leave the club before Miggy does. Lots of people talking about this already. Samantha, what did you make of it when you saw that today?
Well, I agree with Northeast Pro. I would like Miggy to stay and Bruce to go. I mean, if you look at the stats themselves, people will always talk about Rafa and say, okay, we never had possession. But with Almiron, he was an out ball. He knew what his role was. He needed to get us up the pitch. And his role within a Steve Bruce team is just so unclear. Yes, he has legs. Yes, he can track back and he can try and make up ground. But that's not getting the best out of him. That's not what he wants to do. So he will work hard. He does really like the club, but we've all seen he's not playing with a smile on his face this season. He's not being utilised correctly. Even when it looked like he was playing well, he was on the bench. He was being used in the cup. And I said at the start of the season that I thought there was something wrong, and I wouldn't have been surprised if he had left in the summer. So these quotes by his agent don't shock me, because you can tell there's something not quite right. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether he starts the game against Chelsea, because, he made the mistake in the last game, which I do not really blame him for. So something's not quite right. But, I mean, he's a player you need to be building the team around. Yes, he's not the finished article. There's work to do. But you have to give him a chance of attacking instead of giving him the ball in the 18-yard box and saying go.
Yep. Okay. Katie says, have fun, my girls. Nice to hear from Katie. Hope you're well and enjoying a bit of time off. Sav, your take on Almiron?
Yeah, I think, the past as we come into this season, he doesn't look happy anymore. That smile's gone off his face. So when I read that tonight, it actually really didn't surprise me. I think there's quite a few players that look quite unhappy at the moment. And because there's no natural leadership, everyone doesn't really know. They're all just shouting at each other. Every match you see it, they're all just running around aimlessly, not really knowing what they're doing, can't string a pass together. And I can see why someone like Miggy would become really unhappy playing that week after week. There was the issue where he was being benched for not really any reason. Was there something going on behind that? I don't know. It didn't surprise me. No offence, I wouldn't want to play for Steve Bruce either. And, he wants to progress, and he's not going to progress playing Bruce ball week after week.
Yeah, I agree. Barry Hogan says, Kendall, has there been much talk about him Atletico Madrid? You, of course, are our Spanish correspondent.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but...
Any news?
Well, I have quite a good dialogue with Roberto Rojas, who originally broke the Almiron news a couple of years ago, obviously, when he signed for us. I speak to Roberto a lot, and he obviously lets me know because... Atletico and Newcastle are the two teams that I follow. This whole Atletico news was last summer. There was interest, but no official offer was made, no official approach. He is a player that would suit Simeone down to the ground. So I'm just wondering if, obviously, this agent thing is to goad other clubs to come in from in June, sort of saying, he's not necessarily available, but mentally he is, if that makes sense. I'm so mad that a player like Miggy, when he first joined, you could see he was overjoyed, he was over the moon, he was happy to play for us, he constantly had a smile on his face, and that's why everyone fell in love with him, because he works so hard, he's just so joyful as a person. And unfortunately it's been taken away because Steve Bruce would prefer to play. I mean, I know Hendrick and Almiron aren't for positions, but he preferred to, have that sort of dynamic in the team over Almiron. Almiron was sat on the bench. And as a player who works as hard as he does, who has the pace that he does, and the creativity going forward, at 24 years old, you want to be looking to progress your career. And unfortunately, it's going to be stagnant under a Steve Bruce team. That's all I can really see. I can't see him progressing in that respect. Weirdly, I can't see him sort of, not because he's not good enough, but at the moment, I can't see him fitting in another Premier League team just because his dynamic is so, it's so different to a lot of them. So La Liga would be perfect for him. And I mean, if he went Atletico, I wouldn't even be that bothered. I'd be like, all right. But I'm pretty sure, obviously Newcastle fans would be angry, and I would be upset if he did leave because, as I say, he's one of our hardest working players, and he's one of the most talented as well. I think he's second, behind Dubravka or St. Maximin for me. So, yeah, I'd be very upset to see him go.
Okay, Barry Hogan says, evening girls, hope you're okay. Sav, your impression was mint, as was Kendall's amazing singing. Now, I do have a clip of the Borat impersonation. I didn't want to do the Christmas song because it's too early for Christmas songs. We broke one of my rules on Friday by doing that. But I do have the Borat impersonation. So here we go, guys. This is what Sav did for children in need.
Okay, here we go. Drum roll.
Go ahead. Jörg Schmidt, pleased to meet you. My name is Borat. My neighbor, Naftan Teleguay, he is a pain in my assholes. I get a window from a glass. He must get a window from a glass. I get a step. He must get a step. I get a clock radio. He cannot afford. Great success.
Honestly,
I had the sound off. I didn't hear it. I was like,
oh my god! Honestly, I was winding the girls up earlier on, but I mean, honestly, it's like I'm gonna have that as my ringtone. Honestly, Sav, it's superb, and I actually laugh at it, properly laugh, and by God, I've needed a laugh this week, last week, and that really tickled me. It's really good, brilliant stuff. Okay, as I said, what we're doing tonight is what we did with the worldwide show yesterday with the guys. We had a look at the players who are out of contract next year, and just asked a simple question: who would you keep? So I thought we'd do it with the ladies as well, and I'm going to start with somebody who we didn't cover yesterday, and it's Fabian Shaw, of course. Notice that I picked a headshot, Sav, just for you.
Sav's gonna like Photoshop herself into that black space.
Yeah, I put myself in my wedding dress.
So, Sav, because you are a big fan of Fabian Shaw, let's start with you on Shaw. I mean, he's one of those players that, I mean, under the current management, he's not really performing as well as he did, under Rafa. I mean, for me, it's not looking good. But what's your views? Would you like to see Fabian Shaw stay? And I presume you probably do. But if Bruce stays, can you see him staying?
I can't see him staying. This is why I'm going to start a campaign to get Bruce out now. I can't see him staying if Bruce stays. He looks so unhappy. And towards the end of last season, he started looking disinterested, and half like he couldn't be asked anymore. And I think that's a shame, because actually he was a really, really good player, and he was sort of essential to our side. And he's it's really upsetting seeing quite so unhappy. I think he needs a cuddle, but I think that it's sad, and I can see him going, which is a shame. And it's the same with like Miggy. He's another one that I really like, and I think it's sad that these players that were once so happy to be playing are now looking so miserable. And for him to come out like he did after the Southampton game and say, we played like shit. He didn't care. He'd had enough. You could see it was written all over him. And, I think for players to be breaking ranks like that and talking like that, that's a big sign that there's, something's going on, that they're not happy.
Okay, Russell Johnson asking if there's any takeover news. I'm sure there will be tomorrow, mate. Liam Kennedy will be on. We'll be talking to Liam a little bit about the takeover tomorrow, so we'll keep that for tomorrow night. But to answer your question, nothing today. Certainly nothing today, but I'm sure there'll be a bit of an update with regards to the fans, legal battle, etc. Tomorrow, with that being the deadline. Alicia, Fabian Shaw, are you a fan, and would you like to see him stay and get a new contract next season?
Yeah, personally, I'd like to see him stay, but I don't think Steve Bruce has the ability to get the player out of him that he actually is. I think if you had a decent manager in there, you're seeing how well he used to play, and as the time's gone on, as we've had Bruce, the more he's fell off and the more mistakes he's making. And, you look at the team and go, he's making more mistakes week in, week out. And, you come out in that interview, and I think he echoes not just how he feels, but how the whole team as a whole feels, that, they're at a point where they can't care anymore because they don't know what they're doing. That's what you see on the pitch. You can't see what he's trying to do. I'd love for him to stay, because I do think he has potential to be a really good player at the team, but I don't think under this management he can or will stay.
Okay, Samantha.
Yeah, kind of the same opinion. He only looks comfortable in a back five. Bruce said he didn't really want to play a back five. He's been our most comfortable player on the ball up until recent times, when, I don't know what goes through his head anymore whenever he picks up the ball. I would rather the long balls played by Shaw than Lascelles, and it's just not working. I would like him to stay, but I don't think he has any interest in staying unless something happens. And I think for a lot of these players, they're maybe going to wait and see what happens. I hear a lot of people argue, and we'll probably come on to someone like Dwight Gale in a bit, and they say, we should give them a new contract so that we can get value from them if we sell. And if you think about what Shaw's value was, he was our player of the season. I mean, he could have been going for 15, 20 million, and now potentially he's going to leave on a free and go and replicate that exact form somewhere else. So, I mean, I don't know who the decision maker is ultimately going to be about the contract, but if we're talking about business sense, the club should be doing everything that they can to sign and tie down these talented players that they could actually get value from in the market. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and our squad is just overloaded with absolute garbage.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Kendall, what's your views on Fabian Shaw?
I think we all were aware that I know like everyone always moans because like, oh, you always compare Rafa, but like this is all we've got to go off because obviously Rafa was there for the last 3 years before Bruce. So obviously under Rafa we bought Shaw for like 4 million possibly. So first of all, he was one of our strongest players at the time. Yes, he made the odd mistake, but he was solid. Our whole defence as a general whole was solid then. Unfortunately, that whole defensive vibe has completely been undone. He is making mistakes. You know, before we trusted him to sort of act as kind of a DM, like a defensive midfielder a little bit, and come forward off the ball because obviously Lascelles and Fernandez were so focused on being right at the back and holding the back line. So we trusted that Shaw could move from that back line and, you know, bring the ball forward a little bit into midfield. Now, if he does that, we're panicking because we're like, he doesn't know where to go and people don't know where to take the ball from there. For me, I completely echo what Sam says. If he leaves on a free, that is hugely, hugely damaging to us because we could, if just say he was going to leave, not that I want him to, but we could have had that value recouped 3-4 times if he had kept his current form, and unfortunately he's just gone completely downhill. So for him, a player of that caliber to leave on a free who was so solid for us is just so wrong, considering that, as Sam says, we have so many other deadwood players that need to go before he does. And for me, Shaw is a little bit of a leader on the pitch, even though he's not very vocal, you know, outside of the team otherwise. So for him to come out and do that interview after Southampton, and I completely agree with Alicia said, it probably is to echo what everyone else is thinking. And for him to come out and say that, and not Lascelles, for example, who is the captain, was massively, you know, telling for me. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I think the way that we're playing at the moment and the total attitude around everything, I think a few players are going to have the same opinion of it, and we're going to end up getting rid of people that we don't want to.
Okay, that's a resounding view on Shaw. I think most of us would like to see him stay, but a lot of people asking about Bruce. Bruce was watching the Cruise Giant frontman the other night. I think he was actually there, Neil, because his son Alex Bruce has got something to do with Crew now. I think that's why he would have been there. I find it bizarre that Steve Bruce can travel down to a match and go and watch it, whether his son's there or not, unless he's living with his son. Maybe I'm wrong, but I found that strange that he was actually there. He was photographed there as well. Do we think Bruce is actually doing it? Does he think he's doing a good job? Yes, he probably does, but he's getting paid and he's at Newcastle, and you know, he's probably quite happy doing that.
If he didn't, he would change it, and he doesn't. So
exactly. Brian Crute says, great manager, get players to play above their potential. Bruce can't get them to even play anywhere near their potential. Bruce has to go ASAP. A couple of ones on Shaw before we come to the next player. Paul Oxley says Shaw will be gone in January. He isn't one of Bruce's blue chip players that are in the clique. Almiron will probably go as well. And Barry Hogan says Shaw at 28 deserves at least 2 years to get a chance to improve, hopefully post takeover. It'll be interesting to see. And a lot of people talking in the chat about Rafa. Gary Douglas saying get Rafa back and get shot of Steve Bruce. Can see Rafa getting Derby promoted. Of course, Tom Dixon was the first one to mention it on the chat tonight, saying that Rafa Benitez has been linked quite heavily with the Derby job now that they have had their takeover more or less go through. So interesting times. If Rafa goes to Derby, you know, what will Newcastle fans think? I'm sure we'll have plenty of opinions on that over the next few weeks. Okay, next player. And let's go with Dwight Gale, because Samantha has already mentioned him. Alicia, Dwight Gale, would you offer him a new contract? He's nearly back from his latest injury layoff. But would you give him a new contract next year when his contract's up?
Yeah, you've kind of got pros and cons to Dwight Gale. One of the cons is at the moment he has been quite injury prone. Now, personally, I would give him a contract. I don't think Steve Bruce will, because I think he's favoritised Joe Linton. And as a manager, you have to see when your striker isn't performing, why couldn't Dwight Gale come in and take his place when he was fit? That to me doesn't make any sense. But I don't think he will be used. I think he will leave. But personally, I think he's a good asset to have. If there was injuries, you know, if Callum Wilson gets injured, we're knackered for goals because Joe Linton isn't going to score them. So personally, I'd keep him, but I can't see him staying. I could see him dropping back into the Championship. I feel he looked more comfortable in the Championship than what he did when he's been in the Premier League. So I could see him dropping back down a league again.
Yeah, it's interesting with Dwight Gale because, I mean, he hit a rich vein of form just before he got his injury. He banged a few goals in. He was looking sharp, but he hasn't really produced. There's always this, almost a statement about him, that he's a Championship player. You've just said it, Alicia, that he's more of a Championship player, but a lot of people say he hasn't been given a chance. He was always on the bench, etc. If he comes back fit, I mean, the good news is somebody was asking in the chat about Callum Wilson. It's a grade 1 tear. It's not as serious as we first thought. He could be fit for Chelsea. I don't think Steve Bruce would be stupid enough to risk him. Surely to God not.
Are you
But
sure?
yeah, well, exactly. No, I'm not sure. But Callum Wilson, and Dwight Gale, is that a partnership you would play together, Alicia? Do you think?
I think you could do in terms of pace. It's better having him than Andy Carroll. I know when they had that few games where they played Andy Carroll up top with him, Andy Carroll kind of drew the men to him and that let Wilson have a free rein. But I think Gale and him could be a good partnership just because they've got that bit of pace. We've seen that Fraser's out now as well. And, he has nobody, Mickey hasn't been playing well. And obviously we've been talking about that before. He would be a good link-up play because Gale can get round people and he can get through. And, I don't think he's been given, as you said before, the chance in the Premier League to prove himself. And I don't know if Steve Bruce can get that out of him because he's been on the bench for so long. Is he going to be bothered to really prove himself? Or is he going to go to another team where he could be that, the first choice striker?
Okay, good point, Samantha. When Dwight Gale obviously was, in pre-season, and we're talking about Bruce's first season, Steve Bruce bigged him up. He was, he wasn't giving him a run out, but he was talking very, highly of him. He's a great player. I'm looking forward to having him fit. And then once he was fit, he couldn't get in the team.
Yeah. No, get him out. I'm absolutely sick to the back teeth of talking about Dwight Gale and how he might be fit and he might come good. The guy got a pay rise to go on his last loan. He's on 40 to 50 grand. He's never fit. He had a rich vein of form. He got a pre-season and then he got injured. And I'm just absolutely fed up of people that we pay big wages to that we can't get onto the pitch. Yes, he could be good, but he's not. He's never fit. He doesn't play regularly enough and we pay him a fortune. Cut your losses. I just feel like we're in this perpetual wheel talking about certain players. So for me, giving him a contract, paying him a big wage, hoping he might be fit, maybe sell him at some point. That ship sailed. We should have sold him 2 years ago, and we didn't. So I think Bruce will try and give him a contract, because he said, I tried to sign him before, he's really good, blah, blah, blah. It's the same shit all the time. The fact of the matter is, he's never fit. He doesn't play. He might get a couple of games, but you can't rely on him. It's a squad place. It's a big wage. Get rid.
Great stuff. Samantha replacing Katie tonight with the old swear jar there. Not holding back at all, Sav. She doesn't like Dwight Gale.
No.
What about you, Sav? Would you keep Dwight Gale?
No, I completely agree with Sam. When I got on FIFA, he's one of the first ones out the door. I just couldn't be doing with it. I think that, he just, like as Sam said, he doesn't stay fit. Yeah, when he does play, he can bang in a couple of goals, but they're not like, you wouldn't keep him there. You wouldn't put him as number 9. He's never going to be that. And, I just think that we've got all this dead wood sort of sitting around our squad at the moment. We don't get rid of them. We just keep re-signing them. And we're never going to change anything unless we get rid of those sorts of players that are just either bench warmers or injured all the time. And, I think we could do with another striker, but it's not Dwight Gale that we could do with.
Okay, Kendall, are you the same? Rich Story says maybe keep Gale as backup to Wilson unless the takeover goes through. And Tom Dixon says, I'd like us to keep Gale, but depends on how fit he is after his injury. Gale in the current situation, I'd keep him, says Tom Lynch. And Ben Phillipson says, Gale, keep him a few more years, scores goals, but when fit is the issue. Yes. So, a lot of people saying the same thing. What's your view?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You yes, it's all, yeah, we'll let him go, because I'm totally of the opinion, yes, we should let him go. However, if we're not going to sign anyone else, well, we can't let him go, because who else have we got? I mean, as I said last week, Andy Carroll opens a packet of crisps and breaks his wrist. You just can't keep him because he's just not good enough backup. Joe Linton's not going to be a backup striker as far as we know now. And if Almiron's off, then we've got no one. So just based on right now, obviously he is the only backup, but he hasn't been good since he was in the Championship. He hasn't showed any form since he was in the Championship. Fair enough, he hasn't had a lot of game time since then, but he has been injured. He always, when he gets injured, it's like a long-term injury, 6 weeks plus. You can't rely on that if that is going to be, sort of a Harry Kane where he gets his annual 8-week injury. Like, you just can't rely on that to be your backup if, for example, as we know now, Wilson's got a tear, and then your backup striker's injured as well. That's not good enough. I do completely agree with Alicia. I think he is probably a top-level Championship striker. We can't afford to give him a few more years. How old is he now? 27? We can't afford
30.
To
I think he's
is he
29 or 30, yeah.
God,
high,
that
yeah.
old? I thought he was younger. So there's that my point stands even more, because you can't afford to give him 3 years for him to come good. Like, as a striker, like, this is right now is like the last time you're going to be in your prime. We can't afford to take a gamble on a 30-year-old Dwight Gale for another 3 years if all it is, your career is just going to be, defined by injuries and stuff. I just don't think we can afford to. But as I say, unless we get anyone else in, there's just not really any point in letting him go, because we don't have any backup at all as it is.
Okay, let's move to the back four now, Alicia, and we'll look at Federico Fernandez, popular player amongst the supporters. Wears his heart on his sleeve, gets stuck in. A really good defender for me. Out of contract again in 2021. Would you give him a new contract?
Well, I feel sometimes that I'm one of Fernandez's biggest critics. He has these games where I feel sometimes he ducks out of challenges and things like that. But at this moment in time, I don't think there's anybody better to replace him in the squad if he was to leave. At the minute, this is what I always go off, that we're not going to buy anyone. I'm just going to go with, we're never going to bring anybody in if these players leave. So I would keep him for that reason, but I am definitely one of his biggest critics. But I think on his day, he is good. And when he puts his 100% in, he is good. But he's starting to have more off days at the minute than good. But again, is it down to management? Is it the way that they're set up defensively? We'll keep chopping and changing this every week. So I think if he had someone to support him consistently, we kind of lost Dummett, and then Manquillo was in for a bit, and it's always chopping and changing. If he had somebody sitting alongside him, I think he could get the potential and the most out of him.
Okay, Samantha, where do you stand on Federico Fernandez?
I love Federico Fernandez. This guy was the last defender standing at the end of last season when we would have put the tea lady in beside him. We had that many injuries. What a signing. 6 million from Swansea. Didn't know him. I think the problem, and I think I said this on a show a couple of weeks ago, the problem with Fernandez this season is Lascelles. Lascelles has been shit. He's been really, really poor. And whenever Fernandez played beside Shaw, both players, I haven't really criticised Fernandez, but I've criticised Shaw. And whenever they played in a back four together, they were really good. So my weak link at the minute is Lascelles, and I really think that's having an impact on Fernandez. I agree with Alicia's point that we keep swapping people around him, and right back, we might have the most right backs in the freaking league, and none of them are very good. And now we've got Murphy playing as a wing back, and that can't really help much. But I think, I don't know if he has an option for an extra year in his contract, or we already activated that, but absolutely I would keep him. I would keep him over any other defender that we have at the minute. Sav, sorry, I would keep him over Shaw. But that's only because I actually think he's the best defender that we have at the minute. And to Alicia's point, I don't know if we're going to sign anyone. I wouldn't trust Steve Bruce with any more money, because I just don't think he gets the best value for it. So he would be top of my list in terms of playing down. But does he want to stay? Who knows?
That's a big question, Samantha. A lot of people are saying, do these people want to stay? We've already seen it today with Almiron's agent, almost putting it out there, and he's obviously spoken to his client about this and decided maybe we can just push in and see what's out there. A lot of support for Fernandez in the chat. Paul Gibson says both Fernandez and Shaw are better than Lascelles, and that would be my two centre halves. It's interesting. A lot of support for him. Sav, Fernandez.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. Actually, I think he always puts in a shift. He's solid. Lascelles. On a note to him, he looks disinterested. He's not really. He's got that captain's armband on, and he's not in charge of anything going on. He's just randomly shouting about. Whereas Fernandez, next to Shaw, it looks a lot better than when he's next to Lascelles, and that upsets me a little bit because Lascelles used to really be, one of our best players. But I would definitely keep him. He wouldn't be one that I'd be looking at getting rid of. He's not, he's not like some of the deadwood we've got in our side at the moment.
Okay, Kendall.
I literally think that Lascelles is our worst centre back. That's the genuine truth. Out of everyone at the club, Lascelles is the worst. I would have Clark and Fernandez over Lascelles and Fernandez. I would have Shaw and Fernandez over Lascelles and Fernandez. I would have Shaw and Clark over Lascelles and anyone else. I would have Lejeune back. Honestly, Lascelles for me, as Sam says, is completely the weak link. And when he's the captain, that is a massive, massive problem. And that is obviously the dynamic on the pitch is, showing that a bit more. I would absolutely keep Fernandez. I know obviously he is a little bit older. He's just past 30 now, I think. And maybe not a long-term contract, that's fair enough, but at least another year, at least another 2 years. I can't see what the problem is with that at all. Defenders are having to do a lot more in this sort of style of football. That seems to be becoming a thing lately, especially this year. It's a sort of an anomaly, but 100% I would keep Fernandez all day long. If he wants to stay, fingers crossed he does. I would really, really hope that we're getting Lejeune back in the summer, because I don't see why he should have gone in the first place. He shouldn't have. That was a very, very irresponsible and terrible decision from whoever decided that. I would 100% keep him. It's Lascelles for me who is completely the weak link in that back line there. I would have totally keep Fernandez. I can't really see anyone saying any other, to be honest.
Stephen Kent says Bruce, the new manager of Crew.
Yes,
brilliant. You could go to Wrexham where the actors and have taken over. Even another takeover goes through, and it's still Newcastle cannot get a takeover through. Unbelievable. Okay, next player we're going to look at, and I don't expect anybody to dwell on this one too much. At least I hope not. Andy Carroll, Andy Carroll is he worth another year? I mean, he's on a year-to-year contract at the minute. Is he worth another year, Alicia?
No, I think the wages that we pay for him for what he does, he sits on the bench. When he comes on, does he do enough to justify the wages? Probably not, no. I don't think if we sold him, would miss him. I don't think he's a player that would sit back and go, "Oh, really miss having Andy Carroll up front." I think we'll just get rid of him.
Yeah, I would agree. Samantha, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually worry at this point that he's going to leave the club without having scored again, which is absolutely crazy. I didn't expect much, but I thought he might get a goal, and I really worry that that's not going to happen, but it has to be the end of the road, and I'd be very surprised if he stayed in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, look, he when there's a crowd in the ground, he gets the crowd excited because he's a Geordie lad, and we all know what he used to be like when he played for Newcastle first time round. And if I can speak up for him, and I haven't done it on this show, is defensively he's actually not bad defending corners. He has done his bit, and he throws his weight around. And coming on for that last 10 minutes, he gets the crowd up, and if we need a goal, he's somebody who can cause a little bit of mischief in the box. Sav, I can't imagine you'd want to keep Andy Carroll.
Do you know what? I do like him. I wouldn't want to keep him, but I do like him. I like the way that, he's got the height. He knocks players out on the floor, out cold. He had them two out, didn't he? That was really funny when he did that. Yeah, I wouldn't keep him. I heard he was going to Towie, but I don't know how much truth there is in that. Because I was
What, he's going on to Towie?
Yeah,
that's
because
what I heard.
his wife's ex-Towie, isn't she?
Yeah, because I was actually quite surprised when he was playing this season. So I was like, when's he going on Towie then? But I did hear that. But you know, he's getting on. He doesn't play like he did the first time round when he played for us, and it'd be nice to see that again. I don't think that's ever coming back though. And yeah, I'd get rid of him, and he can go off and get on to Towie.
Brilliant. Darren actually got in there on the timeline, and I just got down to it. And he says Andy Carroll will end up in Towie with his girlfriend. So Darren, obviously, reading your mind there, Sav. Ben Phillipson thinks he might go to the MLS. I mean, he could get another season out of it. Oh, we've got one of those chats where everyone's having a laugh. Andy Carroll to revise the role as Jeff in Biker Grove. That's got more chance than him deserving a new contract. That's obviously talking about his moustache that he had that time. Danny Benoffer says Carroll's is excellent to bring on for defending. Like I said, yeah, an unlikely lead. Keep Carroll on a pay-as-you-play. He's a useful squad member, says Mark Byers. Lots of opinions on that. Towie FC says Rafa Benitez is good. Anthony Emma says Carroll couldn't score. Yeah, in a place of ill repute with a sack of diamonds. So, Kendall, your view on Andy Carroll?
I don't know if this is going to be quite unpopular about me saying this, but I honestly don't think we should have ever brought him back, because not for the fine fact that he's never done anything. Just I think he himself probably wanted to come back on the basis that he wanted to end his time, end of his career at his boyhood club, and with a decent end to his career and hopefully staying fit. And it's just not gone like that. And I think probably a lot of people's opinions would have changed on him now, because they won't see him as the Andy Carroll that he was 8 years ago, or however long it was since we had him. And so for me, I don't think he should have ever really came back. I think we should have used that sort of time to recruit a more useful striker, or maybe he's even got someone from the reserves. So yeah, I don't think we should ever really brought him back. I don't think there's really any place for him in the squad at this point as a player. Yes, as a squad player in terms of numbers, that's fair enough. But as in terms of ability and things, I just can't really see the point. And to be quite honest with you, I don't even see him really going to the Championship if he leaves. I think if it's not lower level English football, I think it will be sort of last year, as someone said, MLS or somewhere like that. But yeah, I just personally wouldn't keep him. If he wants to end his career here, and if this is his last year, fair enough, all the best to him. I think that's probably a good decision. Ending his career at Newcastle. But yeah, I personally wouldn't keep him.
Okay. We'll take this one quite quickly. Just a yes or no answer, girls. Russell Johnson says, genuine question, Steve and the ladies. Do you think we'll get relegated this season? Alicia?
No.
Sam?
No.
Sav?
No.
Kendall?
No, but I think we'll be 17th.
Yeah, I would go with the same answer. We're going to be in and around it. I think these next few games, the next 5 games, will determine where we're going to be. But I think we'll get away with it with the skin of our teeth. I think we've got enough in the squad. But yeah, I don't think we'll go down. So that's a resounding no from us as we move on to the next player. And that is Jacob Murphy. Now, interesting one, Murphy, because he's been out on loan. He's received a few plaudits over the last few weeks for improved performances. He's a young lad. He's a Newcastle fan. Not that really, goes a great deal, but I did mention on the show the other week the passion that he showed after playing well in that game, and you can see it clearly means a lot to him. Alicia, Murphy, is he worth another contract?
Definitely, I'd keep him. I've always rated him before we even got him, and he used to play alongside his brother. I think he's a great asset to our team. I think he's getting played in the wrong position, which is, part of the course of playing for Newcastle. You never play in the right position you're meant to be in. I think if he was played where he was before we bought him, I think we could have a cracking player. I think we need to stop sending him out on loan if we do keep him, because I think that's unsettling him further. And I feel like it's putting him 10 steps back when he comes back into the team, because he's having to learn again. But I think he's a great asset to our club, and I would keep him.
Okay, and Samantha?
I'm on the fence. I just think that maybe too much time's passed for Jacob. I think the squad's in turmoil at the minute, so I don't think he's going to play where he wants to play. I don't think he's going to start above Fraser, Almiron, St Max, Joe Linton, in those starting places up top. Never mind what formation we're going to play. We could be on our 13th formation by the end of the season. I worry about his development. So if I take it from a personal point of view for him, yes, he wants to play for this club, but I can't see him starting. I don't see Bruce being long term. I don't know if another manager coming in would fancy him. So I actually think the best thing for him would be to leave and go and get his roots somewhere else, get into a team, get into the first team, and prove the club wrong for completely mismanaging his development when we decided to spend 10 million on him. I don't think he's just another one of those players that's drifted, and he will be a Tony, he will be an Armstrong that will go out somewhere else and rebuild. I don't think staying at Newcastle's the right thing for him.
Okay, Jacob Murphy, Sav, would you offer him a new contract next season?
See, I would offer him a new contract, but as Sam said, he could go elsewhere and do better in a better set up squad than what we've got. But considering what we have, I would offer him a new contract. I think he's come back in this season and he's, we've had some real dire matches, but he has played quite well for us in certain matches. And I think that we need more players like that and less ones, I'm not picking out like Shelby and people, I think that he adds to us. He gets us forward when we can get forward. He gets us forward, and they're the sort of players that we need rather than the ones that are lobbing the ball long and just sitting back and passing the ball around the penalty, our own penalty area. I think that is the bit that I've seen from him that is what we are missing.
Okay, Kendall?
I'm a bit like Snow. I'm a little bit on the fence because, yes, he is only very young, but he is only young. He should be coming into the stages where he's showing what he's about, he's showing his ability. We've had him loaned out for the last 2 seasons, which goes to show, it obviously wasn't part of the plans, and it's just so happened now that Steve Bruce has come in and tried to change the formation and the style a little bit, and he's been slotted back in there. I really don't think a player like Jacob Murphy is going to develop into the player that he probably wants to under a manager like Steve Bruce, especially in a team that is all over the place. They haven't got a set style. They haven't got a set formation that they like to play. If, for example, we get, maybe sign a couple more new players or get a new manager, I can't see him being a first team regular. I think he would be a squad player. And for a 23-year-old, you're kind of wanting to play first team football. You're wanting to establish yourself, especially as a Premier League player. If that's where you want to be, that's what you want to do. I'm as I say, I'm a bit on the fence. I don't know what the solid answer to that is. Because for him, I think he probably wants to be first starting 11. I don't think he will be in terms of how we play or whatever. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. So I don't really have a solid answer for that. But I like the lad. I like his passion. It's good to show that there is someone who's not a fake childhood Newcastle fan like our manager. But yeah, it's nice to see his passion. But other than that, I don't know. It's a funny one.
Yeah, it is, definitely. I think the jury's out on Murphy by the sounds of it and listening to the panel. Me personally, he's a young player and with a manager who's a bit more creative and knows a bit more about football and knows what he's doing and knows a bit more about the modern game. We might see the best of him. But let's face it, if a takeover is going to go through, there's going to be a major surgery to this team, shall we say, and I think Murphy probably will be surplus to requirements. So on to Kieran Clark. Obviously Rafa Benitez brought him in as a cover player, Alicia, and he's always stepped up to the plate. He's been a valuable asset to the club, but is he worth another contract next season?
Yeah, I think he could end up being worth another contract. He's never quite broke through ever since we come up from the Championship. He was brilliant in the Championship, and then he kind of went away and then ended up on the bench and then kind of just disappeared from the team altogether. Again, I would echo what we all said before. I'd have him alongside Fernandez instead of Lascelles. I would keep him purposely for that reason, because I don't think Lascelles has stepped up to the plate, and I think Kieran Clark could cover a lot better. And personally, I'd keep him for that reason, to get him first team football and put him into that week in, week out.
Okay, good point. Sam, what about you? Would you keep Kieran Clark next season?
Yeah, start of the season, probably not. As the season's progressed, yes. Because again, if you're looking at it from a business point of view, if there was anyone even slightly interested in Lascelles, I would sell him. I would cash in. I would extend Clark's contract, because they're at least equal, if not Clark's slightly better, even though he's had a couple of injuries. As you said yourself, Steve, there's going to be an overhaul of this squad at some point, you know, if a takeover goes through, whoever that might be. So I'm sure these decisions are going to be really, really difficult. And as I said before, there's a lot of crap in the squad. But from a business point of view, if we needed money to invest in other areas of the team, I would, if Clark wanted to, extend his contract and be looking to sell Lascelles.
Okay, Sav, Kieran Clark, what's your view on him?
Yeah, I agree with Sam about Lascelles. I'd be getting rid of Lascelles over Clark. I wouldn't necessarily play him next to Fernandez, but that would probably be for my own interests rather than everyone else. I'd rather see Shaw playing there, but I would have Clark on the bench, you know, just in case Shaw needed a little rest. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't know why Lascelles is still running around with that captain's armband on, to be fair, and the only thing I can put it down to is just the complete lack of leadership that's going on all over the place in our squad and with our manager. I think it really needs looking at, and players like Clark should be given a chance more.
Okay, Kendall, do you agree?
Yeah, completely. I'd absolutely keep Clark all day long. He always puts a shift in. He has a cheeky goal in him now and again. He's really, really solid at the back. I think he's one of. I said this at the beginning of at the end of last season. I said he's very underrated at Newcastle. He always has done a job for us. There's very rarely a time that he plays, and I've got negatives to say about him. I completely echo what everyone else has said. If there's a defender that we wanted to sell, it's Lascelles for me, but that's clearly probably not going to happen. Bruce really likes him, and even if he's had a really terrible game, he puts him in the next week. So for me, Clark absolutely deserves probably 2 years again on his contract if he wants to do that. I think he probably wouldn't be short of teams wanting to sign him if, teams similar to us, if he was available. So if that's going to be a thing, the club are probably going to look at letting him go if that's the case, because, they like cashing in on, certain players if there's interest. But for me, absolutely, I would totally extend his contract, absolutely.
Okay, great stuff. That was interesting debate. I want to touch on a couple of things before we end the show in about 10 minutes' time. I want to say congratulations to Zara. This has been a monumental task on her behalf to get this finished. Obviously, 4 years, I think, in the making now, but Zara and James have finally got We Are the Geordies to the cinema. So, film kicks off 11th of December 2020. And this was basically a fly-on-the-wall documentary from a fan's perspective of our season, which, of course, was a promotion season, covering various fans going to the match, talking about the passion of Newcastle United. And at a time when none of us can go to the game, that subtitle of Football Without Fans Is Nothing by Jock Stein means so much more. But this, I've seen an edited version of it long before we were all locked down. It's absolutely superb. I did help Zara whenever she picked up the phone and asked us if I could help her with ex-players, etc. So I'm glad to say that I played a small part in helping her put this together. But it's I know how hard it is to do this kind of thing. But keep an eye out for it. We Are the Geordies. Film kicks off 11th of December. Well done, Zara. Well done, James. I know how much hard work and effort has been put into that. Rafa Benitez, Alicia. Obviously, it's topical tonight. Would you believe that he's going to go to Derby? And I mean, how do you feel about seeing him go to Derby while we're stuck with Steve Bruce?
You know what it is? It doesn't surprise me because, he went off to China and then the last couple of months, it's just fell to pieces. And I never thought it was going to be a long term. I do believe as soon as he left, it was going to be a year's break and then he'd be back in England. I didn't think he was going to stay away from England or Europe for long. And it doesn't surprise me because, Derby probably have more ambition that we did when we had him, and they probably want to go places, and they probably have a good plan. And you know, they can get the likes of Wayne Rooney to go there. You know, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. I think you could do well with them. I think Derby have some decent players, and you know, they've got the ambition, so why not?
Okay, Rafa Benitez going to Derby. Would it surprise you, Samantha?
Rafa's always said he likes a project. It's one of the reasons he took the Newcastle job, and you know, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs, but he came to us for a project. That project didn't work out. He didn't get what he was promised. You know, the blueprint. He's a man that is meticulous in his planning. It just didn't turn out like that because we have an absolute idiot as an owner. The Derby project's really interesting. Interesting owners. Probably know a lot about Rafa. So, you know, if they sell to him what it is that they want to achieve, he can absolutely get them promoted, and he can build. I suppose he would have to have a lot of trust that he would get what they're promising him, because he's been bitten by Mike Ashley doing the same thing. Also, although I don't think he cares, there'll be a lot of comments made about him going backwards, because, you know, he got to a certain level, he went to us, then he went over to China, he's not enjoyed it over there, and then he would be coming back to a championship club. So I think if everything's the way that he wants it to be, it would be an absolutely outstanding move by Derby to get him. I honestly think it's probably one of the only ways they'll get Premier League football. But for him, it would have to be absolutely rock solid, cast iron guarantees that he would be able to manage the project the way that he needs to and get up first time and then build for the future. But I mean, I would be absolutely devastated if he went. Absolutely devastated.
Sav, Rafa to Derby. What's your views on that?
Yeah, and as Sam said, it doesn't surprise me. You know, it's not gone well from over in China. That he'd want to come back, and you know, as Sam said, he does like you know, a project, and if their takeover goes through, then he's got a good chance of getting them promoted. And I think, I'm a bit disappointed because we're just stuck with Steve Bruce, so I don't really like talking about stuff like this. But yeah, completely. I think that he's got a really good chance, if he does go to Derby, of actually doing something quite promising with them.
Okay, Kendall, would it disappoint you if Rafa ended up down there?
It would massively disappoint us. It sounds ridiculous, but it would be harder to take for me than when he actually left us, because I think we saw it coming. And this is just, you know, a strange move. I think Derby, they're not doing great in the Championship at all. Obviously, they've just had, they've got the new owners now. So I think that's probably why he is linked with the job. I can't see him taking it based on, you know, looking on paper, because they're not going to get promotion this year. It's going to be, you know, 2 years plus project probably. Maybe it's next season. I know he likes a project. He's a man. He's very particular about stuff. He loves football. He's so knowledgeable about the game. As Sam says, if he gets, you know, promises and they're not empty promises like he was given at Newcastle, I can see him. I mean, he's now in probably the latter stage of his managerial career at this point. So I can see him going if it's going to be a long-term project, because that is exactly what he wants. But there's probably 5 teams in the Premier League that would take Rafa if possible. So if that's going to be something that is maybe, you know, going to happen, I mean, there's teams like Sheffield United, Burnley, etc. at the bottom of the table right now, who have the squad ability to stay in the Premier League, really. I just don't know. I think I'm hoping that it's not like that. So I'm like trying to play it down a bit and hoping that it's not going to happen. But if it does, I don't blame him. Great move by Derby County if that goes through, and best of luck to him if it does.
Okay, last 5 minutes, we'll look ahead to the game at the weekend. Chelsea at home. As I keep saying, it doesn't really matter whether you're home or away. We've got to get some predictions from you, I'm afraid. It's obviously it's a 12:30 kick-off behind closed doors at St James's Park, live on BT Sport, not pay-per-view. The visitors have just won one of the last 7 Premier League visits to St James's Park. As for the squad news, and obviously it's a little bit early for this, but John Joe Shelby, Martin Dubravka and Dwight Gale all remain out. News will be awaited on the severity of the hamstring issues reported by both Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson, although we are led to believe it's a grade 1 tear for Callum Wilson, so his return won't be as far away as we first feared. Matt Ritchie has returned to training. We're not sure what the situation is with him, but of course we'll know a little bit closer to the weekend. And of course Miguel Almiron is now set to return from international duty with Paraguay, so he will be back and he will be here to feature in the game. So that is good news. Chelsea, news for them. Pulisic doubtful due to a hamstring injury, and of course anyone who saw the game last night, the England game, will have seen that Ben Chilwell was taken off. He's now been withdrawn from the squad. He's got a back problem, so a couple of players missing, but a multitude of players at Chelsea available. Alicia, how do you see this game going at the weekend?
Yeah, although they have a couple of players out, they have a lot of better players to replace them with. I don't think we're going to get anything from this one, and I'm always as optimistic as I can be. But with the quality that they have and the way we played against Southampton, it's a long time to wait when you've had a loss, the international break. I don't think the mindset's right at this moment in time. I think we're going to get battered, and I'm going to go probably for like a 3-0 Chelsea or something.
Okay, 3-0 to Chelsea. Any advance on that, Sam?
I think we'll get a draw. Well, if Wilson plays, depends on setup. There's a lot of caveats to this draw, but whenever we get hammered and we play, as Char said, shit, and there's an inquest and all these things happen, we usually come back with a better performance. Now, do I think that'll culminate in a win? Do I see Isaac Hayden rising like the phoenix in the 95th minute? No, I don't this time, unfortunately. I would love it to happen. But I think it'll be a better performance. Yes, Chelsea have quality. They struggle against teams that really set up a block. So, I mean, if he can get the players to go out with a bit of heart, put in some tackles, stay in the right positions, have a couple of ideas of what kind of counterattacks to play. I don't care if he tries the same one constantly, but have a plan. I could see us getting a draw. I do think, as I said, we usually have a bounce after a bad defeat. If not, maybe a Chelsea 1-0 win. But I don't think we'll get hammered. I also don't think, like Stuart would normally say, that it'll be a 3-1 win. I think a draw.
Okay, that's a resounding defeat and a draw. Sab, what are you going for at the weekend against Chelsea?
Do you know what? To quote the first time I come on here, pants down situation. And I think that especially, so Sam was saying maybe laugh or shit about Bruce coming up with a couple of ideas. He never comes up with any ideas. I just can't see him. It really annoys me with Bruce because we play like an okay-ish game and then he'll just turf the squad out exactly as it was. He'll be like, oh, well, that one's won, so we'll just put that one out again. He doesn't seem to look at who we're facing. And I'm like, what are you doing as a manager? When you're looking at who we're facing, you're not setting up again, you're not changing anything. And I've got a horrible feeling that, we're going to come out and we're going to get completely mullered by Chelsea. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong, because we do have that odd little fluky game where, we'll sneak a win or we'll come out and actually play like we're going to move forward. Very rarely, but sometimes that does happen. But yeah, I think 2-0, 3-0, hopefully not 4-0. Yeah, I'm kind of half dreading it because I don't know how he's gonna. We've had a couple of weeks off. I don't know what's on his mind for doing at the weekend.
Okay, Samantha's got a bottle of gin if the draw comes off, so that's good news for you, Samantha. Fantastic. Kendall, your prediction for the weekend, please, against Chelsea at home?
Yeah, mine's exactly the same. I'm seeing it 3-0, 4-0 job. Can't see us giving them anything despite their injuries. They've just got way too much up front. Ziyech, Havertz, Werner. I don't know if Havertz is back yet. Werner, obviously, they've just got way too much for us to handle. We can't even handle teams like Southampton who had their main striker missing. So we're not going to handle a team like Chelsea, unfortunately. So it's going to be
big hit to the goal difference and 0 points for us.
Doom and gloom, doom and gloom. Tomorrow night, I will be on with the Northeast's favourite journalist, Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette, talking all things takeover and many other things as well. We never know what is going to come up on that show, but he's definitely going to have an update on the Newcastle Fans Consortium, so that should be interesting. And as always, we ask you to phone a friend, call a family member or a friend that you haven't spoken to for a while. This is our campaign for the month of November during this lockdown period. Pick up the phone, give a family member or a friend a ring if you haven't, and make the day, because not everybody asks for help. Some people just need it, and give them a shout. Great to have Kendall, Sav and Samantha on. Alicia, fantastic debut. Would love to have you back if you're up for it.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, listening to you all talk common sense about Newcastle United. It was great. We're going to play out with a video for phone a friend. I'll see you all next week, girls. Good night.
Bye.
Right.